What's up, Craig?
Craig, you motherfucker. I'm the ghost of Retardica. This is Mumbles, Undertone, McFlurry. Breath?
Yes.
Junior or the third?
Let's go with the third. Why not?
The turd.
Third.
Welcome back. It's only going to take 3 minutes and 33 seconds, this intro. This is Breaking Wind. Go figure. Fucking revolutionary.
Yes. Yeah, that track sounds familiar. Did you get that off iTunes?
Yeah, I downloaded that off iTunes. It took me about 3.5 days. It was a slow connection. My router went down. Something about some fucking trees.
Ah, yes. I've had the same experience, the same issues.
Weird,
lately.
man.
Yeah.
Weird. We often, you and me, we haven't really overlapped that much, and yet we share so many incidents that could be conceived as, I don't know, what do you call that? I don't like the word synchronistic.
Synchronastic.
Synchron fantastic?
Yeah, maybe just pronounce it differently.
Basically, I use the French pronunciation, but things happen on what I'm talking about. All right, go ahead. I got to get used to it.
No, go. What do you have to elaborate a little more on what you mean by the synchronicity?
That's like right.
Seeing like number trails or
well,
just like,
I
thought about something and that you're thinking about. Or what?
Well, let's clarify. Many times I'll be thinking of topics supposedly irregardless of whatever I've consumed in media, which, to clarify, I haven't watched television proper in 15 years. I don't do social media. I'm not a recluse. I'm a member of the society, an upstanding member of society. But being a creative thinker, employing critical thought and discernment, also being an artist and a painter, a musician, a creative type, thoughts run through my head. Many times, if I watch a YouTube channel, first one off YouTube, No More Computers, specifically, topics in this gentleman's videos will overlap with thoughts that I have. Not simple David Bowie tunes, not certain numbers, although number 1303 is quite a doozy. Certain colors and images, combinations of topics and visuals often come up in your videos that will overflow into my world.
Yeah.
Pre-digitally.
So let me ask you a question. When I say original, the term original thinking, what does that mean to you? Or what does that imply? Original thought.
Original thought.
Yeah, what would that what does that mean?
Probably in the context of where we are now, I'd say it's unattainable.
Well, to me, I'm look at it more as a way, or more as origins of thought. Are these thoughts really ours, or are we just receiving the signal, and just sharing that same wavelength? Because if you're attuned to a certain frequency, you're gonna pick up what's on the station.
I like that. Listen to this.
Yeah.
How about my right hand being aware of my left hand, or my right foot being aware of my left ear? guess it doesn't matter which part of the body. You get my point. If I would be in a state of dysfunction if I were to be slapping my left hand with my right hand, when in fact we're coming from the same source. An allegory, perhaps. What say you?
Well, you're certainly going to be aware of what's going on, as far as your right hand and your left hand are concerned. I don't think they have minds of their own. I know certain organs in the body have their own minds, but as far as your hands, I don't really know if they have any thoughts. But,
I suppose the literal interpretation of that is flawed, but in the sense of using it as you on the left hand, you being the left hand, me being the right hand, and somewhere in the middle, unbeknownst to us because of our maybe in our this stage of development, we don't have a clear understanding of what would be between us, but it's a slippery slope when you start talking about interconnection between humans and consciousness and having one consciousness, because I don't enjoy people being homogenized and through quote unquote diversity and these sort of ideas. However, the idea that all real men and women are my brethren and cistern. That's not good for the ladies.
No.
But the connection being there, that we're all expressions of. I don't like using these buzz terms because I'm pretty sure I have an idea where they come from. The yellow journalists, so to speak, have trained us to speak in New Age, but from one consciousness. So if a human being, a metaphorical human being, or a mythological human being to be have a mind, be in state of dysfunction that his right hand would not recognize his left hand, and through a higher stages of development and understanding and practice, become aware that the right hand and the left hand come from the same source. So perhaps a ghost of Retardica and a Mumbles undertone. I'm shortening your name.
You just have to find the bridge, you see.
Here we are. The bridge of a nose between the two eyes.
The bridge is usually something that covers an expanse of water, connecting the two sides together.
I like it.
I think we're kind of getting into a hemispherical synchronization. I think is what we're talking about, and like you were mentioning, you have taste for the arts, so you might have spent more time on one side of the brain as opposed to the other, or maybe you have an equal amount of thought on each side of the brain, and if you actually had a hemispherical synchronization where you're activated, your pineal gland is activated, and you're using both sides of your brain to perceive everything, and I think you're going to see things and be able to communicate at that, I guess, transcendental level where we're beyond words, really.
I like the idea of what you said.
It's
about tuning into the same wavelength.
Yeah, it's analogous to the Golden Arches, the Golden Gate Bridge, like McDonald's. I think I don't know what I think.
I think we're both. I can tell you what you're thinking.
You should probably know what I'm thinking.
I know what you're thinking. You're thinking honey mustard, not barbecue. Not today.
Mustard. Honey mustard, not barbecue. Well, red and yellow not only make orange, but they also make you hungry.
And they know the language of my tummy.
And they know the language of your, the way your brain perceives colors, and they know all of these things going into it.
They again. Are we they?
Well,
in this collective sense, once we are not individuals, and I guess you get more than 3 of us into a group, and that's conceptual. A group is just a conceptual idea. Honestly, I mean, you can point and grunt at a group of people, but still, it's individuals. This is getting to be tricky stuff here.
Yeah, well, I mean, the individual is just the dual undivided. An individual is just the two sides in one vessel. So like that internal battle between good and evil that goes on within all of us. And if people say that they don't have it, then they're just lying. But there's definitely in everybody's head. Unless some people are just empty vessels. You could just see like their eyes are dead, and they're just literally like the Walking Dead zombies. But
going back to your question about original thought, so there we're combining these topics in a roundabout way.
Yes,
using 1303 goat ear technology.
Yes.
Interesting. And for those out there who are listening to this, goat ear technology is a need to know basis, and you don't need to know. It's one of those. We never did define it because I said I don't like synchronicity as a word. What are we talking about here? A wavelength of synchronicity. Well, you have a goat. You have so far we've covered in the last episode of Breaking Wind, episode number 1. If you go back about halfway through, we covered the Kuni pig from New Zealand, of which you are a husband to a pair of Kuni. You also have a goat.
I have 5 goats.
Oh, forgive me.
We have
please
Jupiter,
name them.
Jupiter, Pluto, Ceres, Luna, and Juno.
Well, those are strange goat names.
Well, they all resonate and mean a certain thing, and I don't know what really happened first. If the personalities developed, which led to the names, or if the names led to the personalities, but they're definitely suiting. And I think that happens a lot, even with just people.
I agree. I've noticed
the naming of things seems to determine, the outcome.
Certainly does. It's Jupiter. Going back to some, trying to clarify more than I muddy these waters. Jupiter has a tag, I guess, for what is the tag for specifically on barnyard animals' ears for?
Well, to back you up just a second there, you said you're trying to unmuddy the waters, right? And that goes into to me, I like to take the Zen approach, where the best way to clear up muddy water is by leaving it alone, and then it separates on it.
You
Naturally.
let it settle.
Yeah, but
Well, it's too late now
the
because
ear tag.
I got the
What ear?
blues.
I suppose the ear tag is really just for like disease control. I guess certain breeders send their livestock to auction, and I guess it's really just like tracking. It says do not remove. I don't know if it's the same like taking the label off a couch cushion. I don't know.
I was
So
thinking more it was like a hip hop culture thing with leaving the starter tag on your
yeah,
crispy ball cap,
the hologram sticker on your brim.
Yeah, because that goat looked pretty fucking gangster.
Yeah.
Jupiter too. So I was like, oh, Jupiter, this goat knows what's up.
Yeah.
And then that was the first time you would notice the number 1303. That's a four-digiter.
I've known that number to be on his ear for quite some time, but then we launched this app that we're on now. It assigned a random number to me. I'm assuming it was random, but or maybe it's regional because your number was a lot higher than mine.
Oh I got a real good number.
Oh yeah, I didn't.
It had a 7 in it.
Wonder what.
Oh, it was cool. You should have seen it. I got it on my computer somewhere. Hang on. Let me look it up.
Well,
yes.
I wonder what happens if you add the inverse of that number to that number.
Well, we can find out. Let me break out my calculator. No, this is a complete fucking waste of time. We had some numbers assigned to us. Now, this is where it really... Who cares? I say when it comes from the media, which life outside the media really is almost impossible. Even if you turn it off, you're still at the whim of the masses of these groups of individuals that consume the media, which dictate the physical reality around you, despite the beauty of the world left alone. The materialism that builds up in the well, what am I trying to say here? Anyway, once you get these numbers from computers and things like that, you start looking at license plates and sales receipts and things like this, and the digital clocks. It's really easy to steer off into the materialistic superstition and get sort of tar pitted into that. But to take something that was a number that was assigned by a computer on the Breaking Wind podcast to the next day, I think, you letting out your cooney pigs out the gate, and the third number to come out was Jupiter.
Yeah. With
the tag, and you say, hey, Retardica, look at that. That was not the first incident of, that's what I'll call it. I'll call it an overlap. How about that? Okay. We'll call it there was an overlap.
Okay.
But going back to the idea, I'll be working on something. I was working on the painting with the, as you named it, the bear hat painting, and something came to me in what I would say a flash out of nowhere. It was not on my train of thought. So perhaps this was an original thought. Let's tie that in. The original thought was a twisted vine. I consume one channel of media on YouTube. First one off YouTube, No More Computers, and you were in the process of destroying your basement. It in some way involving hot wax crayon blasters and same video. I believe the character Rip Torn had died. I have no idea about these things. And you were playing with the words as you so skillfully do, and you had drawn. I don't know. Did he die?
I don't know.
I thought that's what the whole thing was all about.
I don't know. A lot of these things just come to me, and I don't,
Well, here we go. We both shared one original thought.
Like, well, I don't.
You got a pretty nasty cold or something.
Oh yeah, this is some good stuff. Yeah, I don't typically set out on any particular direction.
Me neither.
Just kind of flows out, and then in like the hours immediately after or the days after, I'll be listening to somebody else's podcast or watching a video, and it's like basically saying the same thing I said. Before I heard it, I've had the thoughts enter my head, before I heard it.
See, I've had that too, and I've come to the conclusion that probably for me, that's just my mind has been massaged to head in a certain direction, and something got, a ripple started somewhere in there, and it turned into a wave and expressed itself as something that was already sort of pre-planned to address or whatnot. Because I see that happen when I was watching more YouTube videos, when there were more people making videos on YouTube addressing topics I was interested in. It seemed like not everyone, but many of them would come to the same, draw inferences at about the same time. Very interesting.
Yeah, I think there's definitely like something, a wave of information that's coming out, and depending on your internal frequency or your own
receptivity,
energy, that's the message you're going to receive. So,
well, now making a distinction between what we would call they or I've taken thinking of it as yellow journalism. I picked that up. That's a term I learned in school way back when and never revisited it. And it seems what people are describing using the H word with the supposed fake events. Apparently, this is just yellow journalism repackaged. Anyway, it seems rooted in psychology and even occultism that we are becoming more familiar with as revelation of the method is sort of put out there. This is nothing new. Point being, thoughts and ideas and opinions can be planted in your head and express themselves on command. Making the distinction between that and maybe what you were talking about, original thought, or an overlap, as I'm trying to define it, from an outside source, or what maybe what we'll call it ethereal source, an etheric source.
Right.
Am I in error making a distinction between the two?
Are you in error making a distinction between the two?
Between, let's say, an unperturbed and unmanipulated, natural, etheric, like a, as you were saying, like a frequency or a wavelength that we could be tuned into.
Yeah.
That's versus a material manipulated, computer digital generated,
maybe not
frequency.
Maybe not computer digital. Like you could probably have some sort of plant induced physical manifestation of some original thought or concept, but ultimately, I don't think we really have like a real free will or like a freedom to actually choose and make decisions in the moment. I think everything's basically, everything's going to basically fall back on what you're programmed to do. So all of the programming is making determining your decisions for you. Basically.
Is the programming coming from, for example, let's take two people were born into this world. One person was, birthed out in the country, on the countryside, where food and love abounded and whatnot, free of outside manipulation, nefarious outside information. The other one being the parallel opposite, born in a hospital.
Yeah.
A couple of skins chopped off
right.
into the wiener.
Well, that's necessary.
Injected naturally. Yes. Injected with mysterious things. Just poked and jabbed. Put under a McDonald's heat lamp. Packaged. Maybe switched out. Maybe some goo taken out. You can see. You can see the two different birthing processes. Are both of these individuals at the mercy of what you're talking about? The no, I don't think you said free will, but
yeah, there's no free will.
So it would be just the parameters of the rules and the rules of engagement of being here, so to speak.
Well,
we're all going to be limited.
Let's you're painting a scenario where both of them are ultimately doomed to the same fate. Whether one's born in the country and is nourished, or one's born in the city and is thrown in daycare and raised by the system or what have you. I think it's still you might be able to choose what you want to eat, Burger King or McDonald's, but something's driving your decision making process, and I think it's something something needs to be activated in the human at some point. I think I know it can be done at birth, and this is the point I'm trying to make is if you want free will, I think the ultimate solution is to get birthed with a dolphin as a midwife in the ocean, kind of like Free Willy. Free Willy style.
It reminds me of my first wife.
Okay.
The end. I had to think of something not funny to keep from choking. I prefer Big Willie style. Well, I use the Big Willie style, but that's what got me into trouble in the first place.
Well, you have to, I guess,
shrink your willy.
Shrink the.
I went too hard.
Fun. I think dolphins are supposedly the first life to be on this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're like the oldest life form, and one of the most intelligent life forms. So, There's
Who says?
definitely, I don't know, some people
They?
in some books, some people in some books
Oh, those
uh,
fuckers.
who quote other books, who talk about other books.
God damn it.
You know, so what we have is basically a chain of books, but um,
All
some
right.
along the line, I'm hoping somebody actually went into the water at some point with a dolphin to come up with these theories. But
Probably one of
uh,
those hot dinosaurs.
we're talking we're going back way back to the Dogon or the Doggons.
Oh,
You know,
doggone it.
those that
Yeah.
old tribe, that old Aborigines tribe of I don't know.
Yeah, these book people keep throwing these stories out,
Well,
and they
the
keep
problem.
putting hats on them and telling me the Pope did it. And I get it. But there was a time.
Yeah.
Let's just we don't have. I don't know how many listeners we have or subscribers or viewers, whatever you want to call them. But let me just open up a personal side.
Okay.
There was a guy. Is Zachariah?
Zachariah Stenchen.
Well, he was Stenchen,
Yeah.
and at the time, these were intriguing thoughts. I'd always been like this creative type, and you know, I suppose being creative, an unbridled thinker with nothing to lose. I felt as an individual, and I discovered something new, which was that you could spray gold particulate into the atmosphere if you were a certain race of being from.
Anunnaki.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this everyone has gotten a good extension. Everyone's got plugged into the extension cord, and now something that I had as an original, quote unquote, original thought, maybe age 20, was ancient beings from the now provably fabricated outer space. And I thought I was the only one to hear about this. Now it's on I believe I've heard it's on a history, or has been on a history channel ever since I got sucked into the tube.
Yeah.
It seems like the majority of people walking around, these individuals, are having similar original thoughts that I had. But when I had my original thought, it was really, to me, really original. But now it's an agreed upon original thought, and it's just the flames to that fire keep getting stoked, and I see reverberations and echoes of it all throughout the culture, going back to one Mr. Freemason Fly with his cable access program. I don't know if you ever saw him.
Yeah, I've seen free.
That I was in there, and I followed all of his architectural studies that led to the Dogon hat, that led to the people that came from the water, and it all ties in through this beautiful mythological tapestry. But it seems like once you get to a point where you understand that there's no end to this manipulation, and the word hoax, even though it's been co-opted and spoiled, once you get beyond that part of the veil, there's no turning back. So it's hard for me to go back to the Dogon fish people.
Well, but
without my rubbers.
The reference that what I'm referring to, that I guess all the cave drawings of the constellations that turned out to be accurate, and the depiction of stars that we couldn't see until we invented telescopes. Like all that stuff was accurately depicted.
Yeah.
when they were asked, how they came about the information, they told them, or they said the dolphins told them, or the fish told them. Are we talking about the same story?
Sure. I
Or
mean, now that's Palladian lore, isn't it?
yeah, I suppose. I mean, it's
It's
more
the
like
I
the Sirius system, the Sirius star system.
right. Well,
But,
being
but
the stars, being lights and things like this,
yeah,
not places to travel to or come from. Even though maybe embodied in those myths and stories is some element of, you know, dielectric, magnetic, ethereal transference, wavelength, some kind of uh, clue to a truth and our connection to it.
yeah,
All this reverse engineering, once like once somebody gets, I mean, what's the anatomy of a lie? Once you get painted into a corner, you have to double down on some dumb shit.
yeah.
And the story becomes, you could never turn back. Uh, so
You got to put a spin on it.
Mumbles.
You got to
So
put a
mm,
you got to put a spin on it. So
put a spin on it. You got to put a prequel to it. If you
yeah,
really fuck up, and then if that doesn't work, you got to get into the numbers and you got to jimmy together some sort of
yeah.
some.
I think the Stinchen stuff, like getting back to the Stinchen, I don't know if he was a Freemason. I have heard that before, that he was a Freemason, but I
Well,
think, yeah, inevitably, I think they sold the story about we were all basically a slave race, and that the enemy is basically an external entity that is no longer here, and there's no reason for us to basically be like, turning over stones trying to find our oppressors.
yeah.
Um, and I guess that kind of gets into like the the value that we place on gold. I guess they say that it's so ingrained in the human consciousness that it might have been actually part of the programming from this alien race that created us, just for the gold mining practices.
Well, the gold mining allegory tying in directly to it being a fantastic conductor of electricity, and
Yes.
the secret of the greatest secret of the Masons, or I don't like talking about those guys,
I mean, I don't know.
but definitely what's running the economy and the razzle dazzle, and what always seems to be the motivation is not the gold so much, the gold, but the properties of the gold, or what the properties of the gold represent, as far as the conductivity and attraction and storage of
Yeah.
electrical charge. This is when a distinction is made between the civilized society and uncivilized society, which is already those loaded words. It seems that you have to make an excuse to go and get some quote unquote gold or some oil to go to a place where actually what you're doing is putting a population of people, or the next coming generations of people, once you've washed their minds clear of the past,
Hmm.
putting them in a situation where they're on the payroll, so to speak. They're on the census. They're on the map.
Seem to have lost you. Ghost of Retardica has left the studio. Are you back? Yeah, there's some fart noise now.
You know, it
I think
must have been we were getting too close. I think the Dogons shut down my server.
yeah. Did you maybe you had to reset your router too?
My router got stuck in those mud butts of
The flood of the mud butt.
the flood of the mud butts has
Yes.
been wreaking havoc in my area. If you've
Yeah.
been following the updates, it's
Yeah. So
horrible.
you kind of cut off like mid thought, but I think we lost you somewhere around talking about gold and
Well, going and damming up rivers under false pretenses to provide uh, uh, luxuries to people that they didn't want in the first place. This modernization, this digitization of humanity, not just digitization, but you know where I'm coming from. All under
you're
the
right.
false pretenses of improving health and improving efficiency and providing an economy and things like this. All based on harvesting an electricity, then addicting people to that electricity. It seems to just be an incredibly efficient way to rope people intergenerationally, mentally, spiritually, psychologically into a behavior. And if it ain't broke, however the expression goes, don't fix it. And all the allegories lead back to, you know, Satan falling from the sky as a bolt of lightning, and you know, where are we going to go with this? So gold has an inherent value as an electric something or other. It's
Yeah,
not just
but
because
how
it's
do
shiny and we were
you
ingrained in our heads that, well, I guess, where are we?
I think they're ultimately seeking the gold for reasons unbeknownst to us. They're trying to assign some sort of you know not what am I saying? They're trying to assign some sort of legitimacy to the value and tell everybody that it's the best conductor of electricity. But I mean, anybody that is in the field will know that the copper wire is going to carry the same amount to like 3/9 of you're not going to notice. There's no measurable difference
Loss.
between copper and gold, except for the price, really. Um, they're both doing the same thing. It's like say like Johnny Walker Black. You buy that bottle for $32, or Johnny Walker Blue, you're going to buy that for $200. But the difference in taste is probably only worth about $5.
All right. Well, I hear you. I hear you. So you're so you're saying there's a reason to hoard this gold.
Well, I think
that we're not privy to. That I've gone down once again another Aaron Dover trail.
The gold, I believe, is the most. I guess the most. I guess physiologically friendly. I guess it would. I don't think that's the right word, but
I like it.
Like you could inject yourself or put gold in the body, and the body will, readily accept it.
Yeah.
Unlike different elemental metals like aluminum.
Let's take aluminum.
So,
yeah.
I think they're trying to make it where they can put their consciousness into some sort of golden robotic or biomechanical suit or space suit, whatever you want to call it.
Really?
Well, I think they're trying to live forever, and I think they might have, who knows, they might have this already. Maybe I've heard things where we're just basically trying to reproduce that old technology still.
I guess I've entertained these thoughts and digested them, and I don't know why I'm trying to see where, when I was following that narrative or that similar narrative, why I lost interest in that narrative. I'm wondering if it's because of the more immediate, immediate irritations that I've been falling for. I can't imagine that there. I just can't imagine that there's. I mean, I've interacted. The craziest people I've ever interacted with, being in New York City, you have access to, the full spectrum of human behavior. For the most part, you miss out on a lot of the better subtle aspects of being a decent human being. But as far as cunning and insanity and psychopathy, you run into it on a daily basis, and depending on what situations you put yourself in, you're likely to overlap with the higher echelons of the financially privileged. And for me, I always attempt, when I'm interacting with people, is to meet them on a human level. I never talk about the weather or the sports or do small talk. One, I just can't keep up with it. There's no value of it to me. Are you there?
Yeah, no, I'm just commenting. That's just idle chatter,
Right, idle chatter.
Refrain from idle chatter.
Yeah, so I refrain from idle chatter. That's just a habit I've developed. I don't enjoy it, and it's gone away, and it tends to attract a certain kind of people. Well, those people aren't really they're very difficult to find anymore, except at Upper Mudsville, New York.
Yeah.
And their schedules are difficult to overlap with and share physical time together, FaceTime, real face-to-face time, human time, I guess I would say. Right. But the point being, these people really are a separate. They're calculating on a level where they have values for things that I don't have values for. One being money. Money just has never motivated me for one reason or another.
Right.
Beyond the usual, like whip a mule to do the work. Like if I have to do this to keep a box around me. Yeah. Even I got to a point where that didn't motivate me anymore. I just bottomed out, but since found a balance. But dealing with the people that value something that has no value to me. For example, if I have something that maybe has some financial value, I'd rather put it on the stoop and give it to somebody or throw it away, a piece of furniture, equipment, something like that, than try and sell it to somebody and get the thrill of making the money off of it. But that seems to be a value for people collecting money. So gold, I mean, I guess it's possible that if you live in an environment where that's the game you play. I mean, I've gone to school and held court with certain people who had a certain upbringing that spent most of their energy and time talking about the collection and savings of money, and to the point where it seemed like they had nothing to talk about beyond that. it was always every conversation was tainted with how much money was saved or how much money was spent or what an idiot a person was to spend so much money while they were so clever to have saved so much money. And so the values didn't match my values. I wonder into what extreme that really goes. I mean, it's hard for me to believe that it goes so extreme that people could just. It just has to be a story to me. It just has to be a fabrication, like that anything has that much value. What has more value than, say, the company of another person, or sharing a fart joke?
Diamond.
You know? Motherfucking diamonds, son. Kill for them shits. They sparkle.
Yeah, no, it's they definitely are trying to make everybody have that ideology where you need to, strive to earn an income,
And that's
and then they help you, use it all up, so you're forced to and do it every day and keep the cycle going.
So the undercurrent of all that whole thing seems to be the collection, the storage and distribution of something that's so obvious that it's discredited if you bring it up. I mean, you have some background in how electricity works. We have these wires that people see in telephone poles, and they go into the houses that circuit around the house. I mean, what's to say these aren't electric fences or harvesting mechanisms for our own energy or something like that? Why do people in the city feel exhausted all the time? Maybe you're constantly getting your essence sucked out.
Absolutely. I've like to share a story. I used to take or practice kendo, sports, yeah. And that's kind of like my first first-hand experience, like with chi energy, and experiencing that firsthand. And after I parted ways from the school that I was attending in Bayside, I kind of had the revelation that the fucking guy was draining my energy before every class.
Wow.
And then and then that was like his energy to teach the lesson for for all the students. Like,
Wow.
they make you kneel, like kind of like
genuflect,
meditation, inner reflection, like, get your breathing right,
Right.
And I always sat right in front of him, like he made me going, like directly in front of him, maybe 5-6 feet, he was facing me, and we're both, in the kneeled position, And like every time I would close my eyes there and start trying to breathe, I could just feel like all my energy would come up, just be pulled out of my body, and I'd like want to doze off and fall asleep right there. Which it was very, I did other martial arts as well. Like, so I had a schedule where I would go and do, whatever, karate or jiu-jitsu, 2 or 3 days a week, and kendo the other 2 or 3 days a week, what have you.
You were busy.
Same times at night. I would do MMA at like 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, where kendo was at like 6, 7 o'clock, so I knew I wasn't just tired like I would normally be tired. It's really somebody pulling my energy, and he told me about the chi, and
they have to tell you. Every good con man has to tell you what's going on.
And he told me stories about how basically the match was determined, or the outcome of the match is determined before, you know, the opponents even like step onto the mat. You know, just
Well, he sounds like a real dick. to just not even let. He wasn't even in the match. He just had his students there, and he was just sucking his students dry.
He was taking all the energy from the students, and then he would go to his, you know, I guess his
master,
and his chi master would steal all his chi, you know. But the sword the sword basically acts as an extension from your navel out to the tip of the sword, and that's like basically bringing the chi energy out.
It's a straw.
Yeah.
It's a silly straw with your sensei basically sucking your ether cock to get out cannibalizing your fucking spirit jizz.
That's like
this fucking guy
mid-flight refueling.
No.
They put that straw down on.
Or like a
I think we lost Retardica again. On the technical.
I'm back.
And he's back. All right.
You know, when I cut out, feel free to just start reading from Mein Kampf or fill up that dead air.
Yeah,
because I feel sorry already for whoever's gotten this far. Have we held a straight thought, or are we just gone?
Yeah,
I mean, we don't even have any waddles in this episode. That was probably the highlight. Showbiz Pizza sitting in the shit. Your story of animatronic horror from Islip was a true highlight. I received thousands of emails just for that.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I don't know where we went off course, but I think we started with
sucking chi.
Trying to free Willy, and then...
Oh, boy. We haven't even talked about cannibalism.
Well, I mean, it was all going to lead into... I had this entirely intricate woven story that I was going to weave everything together with. But...
your fucking whiteboard, right?
No.
You got all these goddamn notes on your whiteboard. We don't ever get to it till the end.
Well, we were talking about a dolphin as a midwife, and you know, like
that's where we derailed.
The children that are being birthed with dolphins are leading extraordinary lives.
Where are these people?
They're like superhuman. Like you probably don't even see them. They're probably resonating at such a higher frequency that we don't even see them.
So you're Zachariah and me right now.
Well,
look, pal.
I think there's definitely something there. I mean, just
definitely something there.
A dolphin can make a star underwater.
Now listen to me. Listen to yourself talk.
How does a dolphin produce a star?
Now listen. Who says it's a star? Dolphin's doing some sonar. Who's to say it's even sonar? What I'm saying, these book people people make stories. When you get stories from book people, you got to read between the lines, right? That's the hard part. There ain't no invisible dolphin people making underwater stars, taking away my gold and sucking my sword. This isn't happening.
So
this is madness.
What you're saying is, let me get this right. Now I'm going to read you a quote out of a book here.
Oh, fucking, are you a book person too?
Marshall Solins, who claimed that Ahrens had proposed his outrageous theory for the sole purpose of generating controversy in an effort to sell books.
God damn it. See?
But I got that out of a book. So what lines do I got to read between? I mean,
well, the one where the invisible
lines.
Well, okay. I would read between the lines where it says the invisible babies living fantastic lives. I would pick that up. I would pick that apart with a bit of scrutiny, maybe to decode what is that trying to say. For example, I think the Anunnaki are probably a privileged people that live amongst us. It's an allegory for what's really happening, so that you don't talk about what's really going on in the actuality. So you don't go out with pitchforks and barbecue motherfuckers.
All right. So
the story is there is a veil. There's information there.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess you have to cross-reference it with your daily experience. Now, you and I have some sort of overlap artistically or wavelengthily, where we'll pick up some vibes that don't seem to be based on popular YouTube consumption or anything like that. Here and there, that's interesting to me.
Right.
So there is that. But to make the leap from that, I don't see anything. I don't know. I can't cross-reference it in my from my experience, like in whatever level of development I'm at, which must be rudimentary because I've been stifled in so many ways.
Right.
But my creative engine is pretty good. I'm open-minded. I like holding a conversation. I like learning. So I guess I'm just trying to see how Mumbles, who I share in a I don't know, this isn't even a reality, is it? This isn't even fucking reality. Well, I'm sharing a conversation with you.
Yes.
Facilitated by this technology. The conversation in and of itself seems to embody the essence of sincerity and honesty and openness and trust. So I want to understand. I hear what you're saying. Like, yeah, information's got to come from books. We got to work with what we got. And if we don't have free will anyway, so what's the point? You don't want to go big willy, you want to go free willy. That's where I fucked up. But I want to. All right, where are we? What are we doing here?
You don't think that dolphins have a means of communicating?
No, I'm with you there. That's grokkable. I got that. That's fun. I like that. I'm fun.
Is there such a thing as interspecies communication? Like, can you know what your dog is kind of thinking, or can your dog kind of pick up on your mannerisms and know what you're thinking or about to do?
I did enjoy your last couple of videos. Listen to that guy talk about some of that stuff.
But it happens.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so we're gonna. Okay, this is where it gets tricky for me because I'm not too bright. I'm not too clever. So when it comes to, we're gonna say interspecies communication. See that's so broad. I'm hesitant to get on board that ship because I feel like I'm gonna go out and get shot down and I'm gonna drown.
Well, I mean,
interspecies communicate. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, all living. Everything you have a vibe you're picking up or a wavelength you're picking up. I guess I have interspecies communication with rocks and minerals and crystals as well. Yeah.
Sure.
So
I know of people doing it. I've tried to ask some questions about origins of crystals, and the crystals give me the wrong answer, and I don't know if because I'm not in tune, or if they,
I hear you. But if we're gonna let's climb it up the ladder a little bit. You know, a dog. Yeah, I have a lot of experience with domestic animals. Dogs, definitely. I say horses, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of animals I have. I can cross reference that in my actuality. I won't even say reality. So,
now,
all right,
like
yeah.
if
So
if a dog is having birth, like is giving birth, like you really don't have to interject with anything. The dog is just gonna do it
right.
naturally and just knows what to do.
All right. So we got. All right.
Nobody's teaching the dog how to give birth. You know,
Right.
Um,
But we're you're laying down the path for me for we're starting with the dolphin. So the dolphin has a language. Is that where we started? Yes. It appears. It appears that dolphins have a language or can make.
And we know that. I mean, sound emitted is a vibration or frequency, and that falls upon ears. It's definitely resonating in some degree. So
Sure, even
it's
falls on
definitely
more than the ears, right? Isn't that interesting? And falls. I mean, we're enveloped in all of this stuff too. That's just a side note. But the ears are the most sensitive to pick up the certain frequencies.
I mean, to me, it stands to reason that it's plausible, and uh, you know, I'm not willing to discount it. You know, just based off of the only information I have is book reading. You know.
Okay, well, what are we discounting anyway? What's who's on trial? Who's on trial here? Is it the dolphin? Is it the dolphin? Is the first? You were saying, or we were saying, or I inferred, or I mistook that the dolphin is the first.
We're all in this situation because of this terrestrial place. Okay,
okay.
So what I'm saying is, people that are born in the water with the dolphins are basically transcending all of our worldly, earthly woes.
What people in the water with the dolphins? That's where I guess I don't follow.
There are facilities that do live births with dolphins in the water.
Where are these facilities?
Several in Hawaii, and I believe there's 2 or 3 in California at the moment.
And the stated purpose of being birthed in the water, which I understand that makes sense to me. But being birthed in the water with
a dolphin as a midwife, because the way they're communicating, the way the dolphins communicate, it's like all the mothers.
I see what. Okay.
Report like just the calm that comes over them.
I see.
It's painless, like painless childbirth.
Yeah. Because I'm familiar.
And then it's the option of either the mother or the dolphin to eat the placenta. Which gets back into the cannibalism.
All right, I can see how you're weaving it now. underwater basket weaving, as they used to joke in the 80s. Yakov Smirnov. In Russia, the basket to weave you.
But now that we're trying to solidify these 2 links that I just haphazardly made with dolphins and cannibalism.
Okay. Well, slow down for your old decrepit friend here.
Okay.
Let me get my walker.
Okay.
So apparently you do a little bit more digging than I do nowadays. I didn't understand there were facilities where you could water birth with a dolphin present as a wet nurse. So, all right. I thought you were saying there's some Palladian entities that we're breeding some half human with dolphins in an invisible realm to collect to quantify and commodify mineral substance or golden ore to trick the everyday three-dimensional human beings into our inexplicable behavior.
No, I don't think dolphins are the ones making us mine gold. No.
All right, I got
dolphins. I think the dolphins are here to help, if anything, and that's kind of why they're always, basically being beaten to death in the ocean.
Well, I think now we're getting somewhere. I spent some time in Hawaii.
Yes,
and,
I as well.
I think you and I, episode 3 of Breaking Wind, should do it live from Hawaii, from Oahu. I don't like Oahu. I don't like Oahu, but there's.
I like Hawaii. Hawaii was the nicest.
That's the best. I actually went to Molokai, and that's a whole nother story. That's where they would throw the. This is where the book people tell me they would throw lepers overboard, and the ones that were swimming to shore would. It was Kalupapa, which is like a tongue of land that comes off the tiniest island of Molokai, and there was.
I've been there. I've been to Molokai. You had to
get out of here.
Yeah, you had to take the little fucking boat across, or you had to take a little biplane. Right.
I took a little biplane.
Yeah, I've been there. It's like that little island that. Yeah, I remember now. I remember going there. That was like a day trip. We were staying in. I don't know if we were in Kauai at the time or Maui, but we took a day trip over to Molokai. And I guess we lost Retardica again. You back? All right. But now, speaking of Hawaii, I remember when I was a kid, I heard.
I think it's the flood of the mud butts.
What's that? The reception?
I was talking to somebody else.
So I was trying to weave this Hawaiian theme into this story as well. I remember as a child being told that Spam, the canned ham, Spam.
Yes. Yeah.
Substitute to basically, for cannibals that were trying to basically wean off of human meat, and that's a very popular dish in Hawaii.
Talk about moco loco.
Everything's Spam and eggs over there.
Yeah, it is. Which was a huge disappointment when I got over there, trying to save my own life by living a raw food diet as I was dying. I was highly disappointed to find morbidly obese people eating canned cannibalism meat and celebrating it.
Yeah.
That's what they do. Dolphins.
So now dolphins reside in water, right? And we could get biblical.
That's what the book people say. Yeah.
Well, if we go off of books, supposedly there's no higher authority than the Holy Bible, right? And there's water. We're talking about water in the Bible quite a lot.
Yeah, we are.
It makes sense to think that we're in some sort of water, or that water was here before we were here.
Yeah, water is the shit.
Okay.
This is it.
So you have this these dolphins who reside in the water, the primordial sea, where all life comes from, right?
Yeah.
Now, also in the Bible, we have several references to consuming flesh and blood.
Yes.
Matthew 26:26.
Egads, I'm gonna have to pull out my fucking little red book.
Take, eat. This means my body. Also, he took a cup, and having given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, drink out of it, all of you, for this means my blood of the covenant, which is to be poured out in behalf of many for forgiveness of sins.
Yes. I'm familiar with this. That was always confusing me when before I really started reading the story.
Well, now, if we go to John 6:53, John 6:53, accordingly, Jesus said to them, most truly I say to you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in yourselves. He that feeds on my flesh and drinks my blood has life everlasting, and I shall resurrect him at my last day. For my flesh is true food, and my blood is true drink. He that feeds on my flesh and drinks my blood remains in union with me, and I in union with him.
Yes.
So there's definitely some cannibalism, I think, going on.
I think on the surface of that, that's how I always interpreted it. And my introduction to the Bible was not a formal one, and I would always steer clear of well, it's just an intimidating thing to get into, and it seems to control the world in one way or another before you start really reading it. Once you read the story, I can't claim to have read it cover to cover, but I started in the Gospel, as a lot of people would go through the born again process. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And Matthew, you just read from Matthew, yeah?
Yeah, that was John 6:53.
And then John 6:53.
And Matthew 26:26. All right, but now to kind of like tie that thought together. Now, I'm reading out of a different book to quote another book. Survivor Pablo D. Delgado. He's one of the survivors from the Donner Party, I believe. No.
All right.
What's his name? All right, so, yeah, survivor Pablo Delgado, who was studying to become a lawyer, told reporters that Christ's Last Supper had inspired him and other survivors. Basically, since Jesus had shared his own body with his disciples, it was okay that they had done the same with their deceased comrades. After hearing this explanation, even the skeptics were won over, and soon after, the Archbishop of Montevideo made it official by absolving the young men of their cannibalism-related sins. So you have the Archbishop, who's a religious figure, absolving people for cannibalism. And
this is the popularization of cannibalism, yeah.
Well, this is...
it's a misreading. It's a gross, not gross in the sense of disgusting, but just it's a rough interpretation for someone who hasn't read through the Bible in context. I mean, that's one way to read it, and I'm sure whoever edited the Bible down put a highlight on the flesh-eating part. But if you were to go through the process of reading it, taking the character of the Jesus, I mean, this guy's always getting the shit into the stick when it comes to interpretation. Because when you read the character of Jesus, it's the most Zen stance any human person could aspire to take. The idea is not to run the gamut, obstacle courses, and flagellate yourself and challenge yourself, or put yourself through the ringer to prove your worth to God, or any of the interpretations, you can go through it, and the story is clearly there. It's a Zen Buddha's narrow path. If something twirls, you swirl. If something attacks you, what is it? Is it not taekwondo? What is it? Jiu-jitsu? When your enemy comes at you and you let them go. Aikido.
Yes.
Whatever. Put a sword in it and suck it. But Jesus going through those 4 books is pretty easy to digest it if you have an open mind. But if you get hung up on those levels, being like eat the flesh and drink my blood and all this stuff, of course that's going to be used by archbishops and Catholic Church because that's part of their MO. Now I wonder if cannibalism is actually something that they practice, or this is something that is designed to just scare people into a certain kind, or
it's definitely a scare tactic, I think. I think,
a scare tactic. But they always reference the Bible as if they're using it in one way, but it's always reversing the best part. Well, just like having your words taken out of context. If you ever been to court, it's the most frustrating thing in the fucking world because it's your words, but it's not the interpretation. But I like your point.
I'm just trying to use the Bible because it's just something that so many people like to, base all of their foundations of truth on. And, if they do put their basis of truth or get their basis of fact from the Bible, or their authority from the Bible, are they reading it and taking it literally or figuratively?
Well, I think that's where the people get caught. Like if you,
right.
I mean, what's the least Christian nation in the sense of following a Christ-like path than, the United States? There's no one that I know of that follows, not in the religious sense or the dogmatic sense, but just in the simple sense of being decent to a person. This isn't embodied in this culture at all. But the Bible is constantly used as like justification and as a scapegoat, and it's brilliant because it's sort of a metaphor computer, depending, just like anything else, depending on how you read it. What state of mind you're in is what you're going to take out of it. So generally, every Freemasonic hall or whatever tends to, I think, has a KJV in the middle of it between spiraling staircases. And constantly I see these people, these entertainers, these I don't know what they seem to be like clandestine journalists and combined with military using the Bible to justify whatever it is that they're doing. And then at the end, when it starts to get hairy and they've been painted into a corner and need to retire, this is when they find Christ. And they use the Christ shield to get behind. And what's the point here? It's just fascinating that you can use the Bible to promote or discredit anything you want. And then the idea of cannibalism, good gravy. That whole book, you're right, is just full of the sweet savor of burnt offerings and things like this. And then blood. I mean, blood and water are used interchangeably, which is interesting, what you were talking about last episode, with the seawater being the life.
Blood plasma.
Yeah.
And all blood is the same. All the blood that runs through our veins is the same as the blood that runs through the chicken vein, same as the blood that runs through the pig, same as the blood that runs through the cat and the dog and the cow.
Which would be cannibalism to eat the creatures, yeah.
It would all be cannibalism. And that, I think, was the ultimate point of that AMC series, The Walking Dead. That's basically like how I see people that consume a meat-based diet.
I hear you. I'm not
Getting back,
familiar because I
getting
didn't
back,
see it.
getting back to the dogma that you were talking about. I think that's a pretty good word, pretty hot word for the topic that we're talking about. I mean, it's always a religious, moral dogma that's in play. And then let me just read
Yeah,
here. Claude Rawson. Okay, I agree with Yale professor Claude Rawson that canid may also be a degenerate form of canis, Latin for dog. Eventually, canid became the root of cannibal, which replaced blah blah blah, the Greek word uh, previously used to describe the people eaters. So you have a distinct relation between canid and canis. Canis is dog, cannibal, So and
So
we're
what are we
talking
talking?
religious dogma, but the
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
I think the like what you were saying, it, cannibalism I think was weaponized in a sense where, like with Columbus in his times, going
Sure.
these foreign islands, they just
Keep you out of there.
made up some bullshit. Hey, these people are fucking. These are people eater. They're gonna, if they catch you, they're gonna eat you. So we better go in full force and wipe
Right.
them all out. And I
Yeah.
think that's pretty much what they did. And I have a quote here. It's Columbus supposedly said this. We have no real
You
way
have
of knowing.
you have so much more patience than I do.
The Arawaks are fitted to be ruled and to be set to work, to cultivate the land and do all else that may be necessary. So,
Yeah. Do
something
all that may be necessary.
so like, he's talking about the locals of whatever islands they happen to have dropped, you know. So I think they just basically sold the story back to the, you know, whoever's financing the corporation,
Sure.
and or whatever the corporation themselves comes out with the propaganda that the islanders are eating people and they're heathens and
Sure.
beasts, and we have to get rid of them at all costs.
Well, that ties into what we were talking about as far as excuses and reasons to conquer lands and build dams and destroy populations in order to build quote unquote civilization. And, I mean, it's just creating something where there was nothing to perpetuate your own. I don't know your own what your own lie. I mean, it's totally insane. It seems totally insane, but cannibalism used to scare a population, just like we were saying before, like beheading. The imagery of cannibalism shocks people. It's if someone tells you to not think of a purple monkey, you think of a purple monkey. Oh,
Yeah,
this game.
yeah,
I see this on YouTube a lot, where it's someone who's saying, "Isn't it horrible that these things that you can find on the internet?" And they proceed to describe in detail gory situations that get stuck in your imagination. It's difficult to get them out. And in fact, when saying they're uh, working against or uh, disgusted by something, what they're doing is planting the image in your head to get a reaction to steer you. I've found a lot of this stuff that we're immersed in is just steering people. You don't have to be exact, but if you have the right trigger and the right generation and the right demographic, and you get the feedback, now the feedback coming through the cell phones. This is what the supposed surveillance is. It's nothing more than you just signing over your data so they can be calculated and crunched through these giant algorithms to sway and steer the maybe the soulless individuals who are emptily the cannibals roaming around. There is a magic associated with cannibalism as well, as far as driving people insane. I'm sure these things can be microdosed into the probably into the atmosphere, definitely through the food chain.
Well, another thing I could be, thinking is it like soft release to like, how the flat Earth theory, for instance, just trying to get people to wake up to the idea that the Earth might not actually be a globe. Or like, is this like the cannibalism?
I see.
Are we like being softened up to like, I guess, dispel the taboo of cannibalism, where it's an acceptable behavior within society? Because it does make the most sense to, that people are what they eat. So if you identify yourself as a human, you're obviously walking around saying you're a cow, so
right.
You should be eating your own kind.
Man, or you already are eating your own kind.
Right.
And then so when the reveal comes, it's going to be, whatever. Because you've already been adjusted to it. Or it could be a more benevolent approach to it and say, this could be, and I don't know if I subscribe to this, but this could be introducing cannibalism into the culture to create this overreaction to a disgust factor through the normalization process. But on the other side of it, it's a disgust factor that's driving people towards a more plant-based diet. I don't think I really believe that, but there seems to be a lot of manipulation in the sense where, if you read the book 1984, it's pretty interesting. Winston, the character, is built up. His body is built up and then torn down, and he's sort of forced to look at himself in the mirror, and he's this horrible, emaciated wretch. And then over time, they feed him again and build his body back up to put him back out to work, I suppose. And it's just this total torturous head fuck of breaking down and building back up. Mentally, this happens as well as physically, but look at how it physically expresses itself. Look at how powerful the mental image of cannibalism can actually express itself physically through the population by way of multi-tiered advertising from, say, movies and comic books and music. It's coming at you from all angles.
Yeah.
So if there's that level of control, the normalization of it, what could be the driving force behind that, other than just more control for control's sake, I suppose?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely some sort of controlling tool. It's.
What do you think about
all of these things? Have at least a dual purpose. For their agenda.
Well, and just like reading a book, no two people are going to come away with exactly the same interpretation of it. I mean, that's what makes the Bible so great, is you can read something about eating flesh, and I can see that interpretation and understand how that is used. And I can see another interpretation where there's some poor schmo who's, had such a shit life, and finally the one thing he found was, the story the story of Jesus, and he's born again and does the whole thing and whatever, and finds peace in those words, I can see how knee-jerk, reactive, and disgusted he could be by that interpretation, and how that's a powerful manipulation of a huge population as well.
Yeah, it's all a manipulation.
And
I heard somebody say, I forget who, but they don't even care about the information anymore.
That's how I feel.
Referencing, I guess, the CIA. They're not even concerned with collecting information anymore. They're more concerned with creating a culture.
I think it's always been that. I think it's always been, there's no distinction. We're fed the distinction between journalism, military, and intelligence collection, and government, this, that, whatever agencies we hear about seem to be, I don't know what the expression is, but one and the same. It's what the entire culture creation is what we are existing in. And there's no distinction between the media and entertainment, the military, any form of art.
Blend it all together.
Yeah, and it's what you would call it. How about this, man? It's immersion reality, like virtual. It is a virtual immersion reality, and left alone, I found people generally lean towards the logical and the benign, and they kind of don't want to be in large groups, but sort of gravitate toward the small. So if you're gonna domesticate entire populations of people, it seems you have to keep this system in play. And as I don't know if you're familiar with David Foster Wallace, this archetype, this character, gave a famous, what do you call it, a graduation speech called "This is Water." Have you ever heard that?
Might have. It doesn't sound like it's familiar.
But to break it down, he's a commencement addresses. That's what it is, a commencement address. And you're congratulating these graduates on going into the real world. And so he starts off his speech with the story of there's an older fish and a younger fish swimming through the water. The older fish and the younger fish swim past another fish that asks them, "Hey, how's the water today?" And they swim past, and the younger fish asks the older fish, "What's water?"
Yeah.
And I didn't tell that exactly, but you get the point.
Yeah.
We're in it, and that was maybe if we take any sort of care in putting up these episodes, maybe put links to stuff like that so people can watch it.
The fish doesn't know that it's in water.
Yeah, it doesn't know it's water. So here we are.
Until you take it out of the water.
and then shove a stick in it and throw it on the Barbie.
Yeah, then it knows that there is.
Then it learns what fire is and wood.
Yes.
But these are the Chinese principles of nature. Listen to me, buddy. The water. I want to just finish one point before I lose it, because I think about this all the time. Going back to the waters were separated from the waters. So there's the water in the beginning, separating from the waters, and you tend to think like, okay, there's waters above the earth and above the heavens, or in the heavens. And it's like, well, what if the waters is just separating the waters is nothing more than rarefying the water into air, and we are in water. The name of the David Foster Wallace speech is called "This is Water." Well, the air that we're in, or the ether that we're in, which seems to be the most logical when not fucked with, it just seems the most logical that the ether can be described essentially as water, and water seems to be nothing more than just the basic components of itself. It's just water. I'm not buying the hydrogen and oxygen thing.
Yeah. Well.
But the and to catch these wavelengths between individuals and things like this, there has to be a medium that it goes through, and it's been proven you could
definitely. It is the ether is water. It's just like the mist. It's a misty water. It's a lot finer. It's
more like spread out, where the quote unquote outer space would be even more spread out or refined, or what you would call thinner. I don't know. It just seems to make sense.
We're definitely swimming in it. If our bodies are
right
of entirely of water, our skin is the largest organ. We there is such a thing as osmosis. So if we're immersed in this etheric, I guess fluid, or we're absorbing it, and that is what's permeating through all things, and I think that's where we're riding these waves of thought.
I'm that's where I'm at, and I like when we talk like this.
But go
ahead. Just because it's outside the realm of media.
To just tie all it together.
Thank God.
Basically, where is the line gonna cross? Like we're creating the reality as we go. Basically, like the tale of pi is never ending because we're making it up as we go along. So the tail meaning the decimal expansion of pi. It's never, because we're building it, and the more we keep the machine alive, the longer the number's going to get. And so we were talking. I pulled two references from the Bible about cannibalism, where it literally says, "This is my blood, this is my flesh," whatever. Okay, and now we also have where it literally says waters separating from waters.
Right.
So where do we draw the line as to what are we taking literally and what are we not taking literally? And
I think that's the beauty of it as an individual.
Choosing, pick and choose, cherry pick. I mean, I cherry pick, all day long. I'll read a book today, thinking of one thing, and find 1,000 things about it, and then read the same book with a different topic in mind, and find all type of stuff,
I think as far as going back to what you were saying is, like, no matter where an individual is born under the kindest of circumstances with dolphins underwater, or the worst of circumstances with penis mutilation and injections, there's sort of a rules of engagement. And I lost my train of thought. The interpretation, not having as we understand it a free will. The closest that you can get to that is interpretation based on your individual experience. And so something like the Bible, I've always taken the Bible to be sort of a computer that's programmed to give certain responses back depending on how you approach it. Or if you've ever used tarot cards, whatever you put into it is kind of what you get back out of it. You're an integral part of the interpretation, but it's right.
I wouldn't give that much credit. I wouldn't give it that much.
Well, I don't think. But I think also you take any book, you're going to do the same thing. Or if you watch any movie, I'm not giving it credit.
That's the modalities of the mind, I think, that's working.
Sure, exactly. So I think it's use the Bible. It's written in such a way. I give it credit in the sense that it's full of trap doors and interpretations. So if you go in there and you need to justify, let's say you're one of quote unquote them, and you've been painted into a corner and you need to justify, well, let's say perpetuating cannibalism into the popular culture, whiz bang, all you got to do is open up. You're going to find something to fit what you need. And I think that's how it's used. I think it's used most of the times in popular culture that way. But like anything else, what's the old analogy? You can kill with a hammer or you can build a house with a hammer. It's depending on how you use it. But most people don't know how to use this hammer. And it's been manipulated, so it's got so many, so many ways to hurt yourself with the fucking thing. It's better at times just not to pick it up unless you're coming at it with like a Mumbles undertone sort of Buddhist. How would you say, like a Buddhist or Zen interpretation?
This is my point, where it's it's to step back from it. Like everybody is caught in time and trying to escape from time and live forever, and then they're all reading the Bible, which is nothing but a book about time.
But who's really reading the Bible? I only see it being like manipulated by people.
That's where I'm coming in. I'm reading it as a literary work. Okay?
Yeah.
That's where I'm coming in. I mean, I've read it, a lot of different ways, but now I'm reading it as a body of literature. And what it really is basically just that, a body of literature with examples in all the different styles of writing and of the day. Everything is in there as far as literary techniques go.
Sure.
All of the tricks are in there to make a compelling story and to get people to read it.
Sure. Which goes, if you want to look into David Foster Wallace, he wrote Infinite Jest, which is a pretty good description of what you just gave there. Infinite jest isn't a great term for the Bible. It's sort of it's a all-in-one. When do you I mean, it's hard to pin it down on like when it was written, but as far as like the way the timelines have been stretched and whatnot,
well, I don't think
it's that thing.
What we have now, I think, is from what 1511 or 1516.
I think it's 1611 is the official KJV.
Yeah. Okay, but that was penned by the king's only official scribe, Robert Barker.
Sure.
Who might have very well been Francis Bacon.
Bob Barker. Oh, sure. Well, I mean, it was definitely collaborative. All of these names are archetypes, collaborations of ideas of groups of people, I'm sure. Same with Tesla and all the electrical heads. Who's the one? Steinmetz, and even Einstein is the embodiment of ideas to push out into the popular culture. So that's the thing with the book. When I talk about book people, I'm joking, but everything it doesn't have to be, but depending on how you go into it, like you have a mind and patience to go in and read these things and piece them together. I fatigue I have double vision where my eyes don't work together real well, and it's maddening. We were talking about vision last episode.
Laser vision.
But the laser, I can't get the laser eyes because it doesn't help my two eyes converge to make a one image. So I'm depending on where I put my head tilted up, left, right. If I'm dehydrated, tired, whatever, my vision is constantly getting screwy. So I get fatigued really, really easily because my two cameras are just.
Have you tried with your eyes closed?
Tried reading with my eyes closed. That's what I do all the time.
Yeah, that's kind of what works for me.
I just stick it. I used to stick the book under my pillow when I studied. I had read somewhere. You said you had a history with Hooked on Phonics. I had a history because of my vision. I didn't know this at the time. It's only about 10 years ago I understood that I had the double vision, and it explained basically the whole fucked up package that I've become. It's made me a lot more easy on myself, or forgiving a lot of the ways I've interpreted the world and whatnot. But I would listen to these memory tapes and how to use mnemonic devices, which, going back to they, them, and the manipulators, part of this whole package with the journalism, military, and entertainment is mnemonics. And that comes from our boy Loyola. What's his name? Whatever, Loyola, the Jesuit character from days of yore, which is about that. That comes from about 1600 as well. All this stuff came from about quote unquote 1600, which is probably that's when they did the big show.
Right. I said everything is like 1600s except for dinosaur bombs.
No, that was about 100 years ago.
No, 1860, I think, was the first count.
Was it? But all these things, you can see these big pushes, and it's so easy to disassemble, and it's impossible because of the water that we're immersed in to share with the younger fish. Like, oh, this is water. What's water? They don't even know they're in it.
Yeah, and it's not only that we're in it; it's that it's muddied waters. And like I was saying earlier, is to leave it alone to clear up muddy water, which would, gets back to the Bible and the biblical text being a Trojan horse that's done nothing but trap us within this paradigm of time and a manipulative language, and it's really just a means of control. And I think the best thing to do is ultimately just leave it be. Don't give any credence to it, because after all, it is all interpretation, and it all stems from one letter. The original Bible was one letter long, and then it became one word, and then it just became interpretation after interpretation after interpretation, and
bear shit.
That's all.
It's all bear shit
in the woods,
brother. I think you tied it all together perfectly. Couldn't be a better way to end this breaking wind than with what you just said.
To wrap up my only last thoughts here, to give two more quotes out of this book, Cannibalism by Bill Schutt. That's Schutt, if anybody's interested in further reading. Here's a quote. "My problem is that no one ever sees it. Therefore, the pattern of observed behavior is not eating people, but assuming people eat people and never actually seeing it." And then another quote from, I believe, Whitfield. "A huge conspiracy with massive resources that wants to mislead the world into thinking that endocannibalism was an established practice." And I think that pretty much sums up everything I had to say.
Well, it just leaves one question.
Which is?
Honey mustard or barbecue?
I'm going to have to go with honey mustard.
Me too, buddy. 3, 2, 1. I think we did it.